back in the new studio, working on the new podcast, going to be called The Dungeon. It's going to be an audio-only podcast, and it'll be the type you can plug into the radio, put it on your cell phone on iTunes, listen to it at work, listen to it on a drive. I think you're going to like it. It's going to be a little different from the video podcast, Beyond the Shadows. It's going to have a little more atmosphere to it. I think you're really going to like it. I'll be telling you more about it the next week or so. But right now I'm working on a video podcast that you're going to be seeing coming up. I went to a short ghost conference in Dupo, Illinois. It was put on by the St. Louis Paranormal Research Society. If you don't know these guys, you need to look them up. They're a pretty incredible group with what they're doing. Coming up in the next few months, they're going to be doing YWCA in Illinois ghost hunts, and apparently this place is really, really crazy haunted. They're going to be working at the Lemp Mansion. They've been doing Lemp Mansion ghost tours now for a year or two, and they're really good at it. Also, these guys, and you may want to put this on your schedule, they've got the first ghost tours of the Lemp Brewery. And they're going to be taking you into parts of the brewery even I haven't been in. And I've been on a ghost tour there. But this is a whole new place. This is a team that works well together. I think you're going to enjoy it. So you need to check them out. What you're going to see now, though, was the ghost conference in a Oddfellows hall in Dupo, Illinois. So enjoy this.
Union members, if they found what they called a scab, they would take them to Lockman Bridge and actually hang them off the side of it. Now, this is the only image I've ever gotten of Lockman train trestle, and it was from 1988. And it's just a satellite image right here. But this was, lynchings tend to be kind of a traumatic event, and this was probably the initial start back in the 1920s. Of what we call the 7 days in June 20th, 1990. She was found in the field intersection. The victim's, her death was a result of multiple cut wounds or multiple incisions. She found her fallopian tubes, uterus, and ovaries were removed. A lot of people think this was a sacrifice. There were no defensive wounds found on the body, but the body appeared to be dumped at the site. Now, what was really weird is when she was found, she was actually suspected to be dumped where she was in the field, not 2 to 3 days earlier. But this is where her body was found, hidden up in this cluster of trees here. But 2 to 3 days earlier, June 17th and June 18th, is the start of what they call Grand Climax, which is a very important ritual time in the satanic calendar. A lot of people think the way she was cut. And I believe I captured it here. Now, I've gotten a lot of criticism on this photo. A lot of people have accused me of this being cigarette smoke. One person said it was vape. I looked that up in the Urban Dictionary. It's the vapor smoke. But I can guarantee you this was captured with a 3 megapixel Olympic digital camera. And there was no attempt. If you take this in iframe and lighten it, there's a face that appears right here too. But I think that's the malevolent spirit that people talk about at the gates that kind of chases people away. It chases you away, and a black car is supposed to appear on ritual nights, when nights where they the satanic cults are performing their rituals. I've had a black neon chase me, but I can't contribute to it being a satanic cult one exactly. And I think the reason why it was hushed up was the Casino Queen is within. Yeah. Now, so you have the Casino Queen, you have the Metrolink station, and instead of turning left and heading to the Casino Queen or going down to the granary, you turn right. There's an abandoned intermodal tractor trailer station there. And it's been shut down for 30, 40 years. There's a few structures back there, nothing of any consequence struck their arms. But in 2010, this place was abandoned, and these two gentlemen would lure homeless people in with the promise of food and alcohol. And I hate to say this, but I got that chair in my house in my garage. I should have bought that. But I said it here in the audience in Jason. But what they would do is they would lure people in, and they would perform, and they were very amateur satanic rituals. Basically, they're just torture. And how the police found out about it was a guy escaped. He broke free, he escaped. And when the police came to the warehouse, they were burning bodies out from the warehouse. The warehouse was kind of shaped like an L. Behind the warehouse, the L, they were burning bodies.
My thing today is instrumental transmutation. We'll talk about spirit boxes and communicating with spirits using something that you can substantiate. So what we have is how do spirits communicate that's in the radio that stops on the stations so that it scans all the time. And then that gap in between the one station and the next is where the spirits can influence that transmission. So it's not so much the hard broadcast stations that's hitting, it's the change from one station to another. So the apps, have you seen those apps you can get on your phone, like the Spud Pickles, Spirit Radar, and all those things? They're kind of hokey, but the way those things work is that they have a database of responses that are in the computer or in the program. It's a catalog of responses. And then supposedly the spirit influences you using your Bluetooth or your Wi-Fi antenna signal, and then it can give out the responses kind of like Oculus works. But they claim that it's a radio, but it's not.
Okay, now with Bob with St. Louis Paranormal Research Society, right? Okay. Wasn't quite sure what the R stand for. And you just gave a really cool discussion on some of the new equipment that, how do I say, is not your standard stuff, really. What piece of equipment do you use the most?
Probably the spirit box. We use the Shack Hack, kind of the Frank's box type device, and then we have the SB7 spirit box too.
And by Shack Hack, that means you built it yourself, basically?
It's just a modified radio that scans through the channels all the time.
How do you like operating those things?
I think that because you get an instant response, it's a lot better than like EVPs where you have to review what you're recording. You ask a question, then you have to rotate back and find out what the response was.
Okay.
So,
how does it work, basically?
well, the radio doesn't stop at a station; it just seeks all the time. And then when the spirit voice comes through, they're over multiple channels, so you can tell that it's not spirit, but it's not a radio station, the little blips of radio station that you get.
The ones I've heard, it seems like certain words are louder than the others, like that's, pay attention, this is the report.
They can be.
Do they just sense what word's coming out next? Do they know what's going to happen, that they can pick that one word out that they're looking for?
There are theories that they can do that, because I've seen in the ITC field where people will take backward speech and feed it into the radio, and then they get forward speech responses out of it. So I think the spirit manipulates the sound and then makes that to what they want to say. But I also believe that the spirit box, because it's the antenna is receiving communications, so it's also a real-time direct communication.
If somebody wanted to purchase one of those, what kind of cost are they looking at?
Well, the SB7 is probably around $80. And it's a purpose-made device. It's made just for spirit communication. But you don't really need to outlay that kind of money. You can buy a regular radio like Dollar General and just hack it so that it seeks all the time and does the same thing.
Okay, so $10, $12 can do it. Do you recommend a external microphone with it or external speaker?
The external speaker is best because the cheaper the radio is, and the cheaper the speaker will be, and you get a better response than if it has a better speaker.
What kind of words have you heard come out? Do they actually answer questions?
Oh yeah. And like I said in my lecture, the more you use the spirit box and location, the better they'll get at using it, and then you'll get better at communicating with them too. And like I say, if we go on an investigation in a person's house, you might not get a bunch of responses, but if you take it somewhere where people have investigated a lot, then you get really good responses.
And you mentioned other equipment that you can, or maybe I should say apps,
right,
that you can get right on a cell phone for $1 or $2. Are those things worthwhile, or are they just silly games?
Usually the ones that are better have like a demo version that you can get for free, and then try it out and then see how it works, and then buy the $4 or $5 upgrade one.
But do you think it's worth it?
It depends on what it is. The Spirit Box apps are usually more of an entertainment thing, you know. But then there are some that are really good. Like the Oddfellows isn't cheap. I think it's like $20 for that app. But the guy who made the real Oddfellows device worked with people to make the app that does the same thing.
So let's say that I'm going into ghost hunting. I've got the K2 meter, and I got $30 left.
Right.
I got a camera. I need what? What should he pick up?
Well, like I said, the radio is a good way to go.
Okay.
I think if I had known in the beginning, you know, when I first started, you know, the devices, because back then everybody had the tri-field meter,
right,
and you had an infrared thermometer, you know, an Instamatic camera, and you were a ghost hunter then. You know? But now I think if I could talk to myself back then, I would have gotten more into the EVPs and the direct spirit communications back then.
I'm with you on that.
Because it's cameras, investing a lot of money in cameras can get out of control really fast, especially when you're night vision cameras and infrared lights and all that. And the outlay of cost to your reward isn't there.
Okay.
You know, because I have some really expensive cameras and really expensive infrared lights, and I have not a lot of evidence to back that up. You know? So,
all right, let me ask you this one more thing. How can people contact the St. Louis Paranormal Research Society?
we're on seaghost.com.
Can you spell that?
SEEAGHOST.com.
All right. And is there an email address specific, or is it?
No, it has links on it.
It has links.
Yeah.
All right. Bob with St. Louis Paranormal Research Society. Thank you. There it is. All right. Thanks.
Negative energy. If you're in a place where you're concerned about you might interact with some negative spirits, or you're not sure what may be waiting for you, I always encourage carrying black tourmaline. This is one of the chunks that we use as a showpiece at home, but we also have some smaller pieces. So this is a selenite wand. The way selenite forms, it's normally going to be in this type of shape in its raw form. You may see some folks do a selenite sphere, so they can tumble the rock, they can make it into a round shape, they can carve it, they can make it into a heart, they can make it into different shapes. This is one of your rawer forms of it. This is a pretty good size selenite one, and they're nice for using in grids, because with a grid, and I'll explain this more as well, you're going to actually set up a series of stones to set your intention, to try to manifest a specific kind of energy. If you look at it, it has a very reflective surface to it as well, but it's all black. And so similarly, it sort of shields against negativity. It can absorb some negativity from the environment, so it becomes very important to cleanse your protective stones. We'll tell you more about that later in the presentation.
I've been involved with the paranormal on and off for close to 40 years. I was a ghost hunter before they guys are gonna be in here, you're gonna need to be inside the server. So, all right, in any case, let me talk to you just a little bit. We were talking about, going into a haunted place and all that. There's so much misinformation about what has come to be called a seance. A seance is essentially nothing more than an attempt to contact spirits that have passed. Now, this particular technique, as it were, first began to develop in the early 1800s for a lot of reasons. There's been like 1820, 1830, 1840, up until the Civil War. Think about what happened. You had the Boer Wars, the cholera epidemics, and then you get into the Civil War. Then you get up into other conflicts in the late 1800s, and then World War I and World War II. People lost a lot of people, and they would do almost anything they could in order to contact those people. Now, the less than ethical, which I do my best to avoid, they say, oh yeah, Grandma hid her jewels here, and this kind of stuff. It may or may not be possible, but first of all, my wife died about 15 years ago, and I really am sensitive to this. You seem like Sylvia Brown, what's that other guy? John Edwards. Yeah, have you ever seen any of his shows unedited? For example, John Edwards. Go out on YouTube and look for some of his shows that were on YouTube before they were edited for broadcast. And what he will do is he'll ask the people that are, the subjects there, and he'll say, oh, my son's name is John, and he died under these conditions, and all this kind of stuff. And then they repeat it back to him. Then they edit it, so that he says it first. He says, oh, your son's name was John, and he died under these conditions. So it looks like he's sensing the stuff. So it's really easy to take advantage of people that grieve. Now, anybody familiar with Waverly Sanatorium in Kentucky? Yeah, fascinating location. Let me show you something here that I managed to obtain. Waverly was essentially, it's not even, calling it a hospice is getting too respect. Up until about 1945, people went into that. They simply gave them a bed, made them as comfortable as possible, and allowed them to die. Now, every year, what they would do is publish essentially a yearbook. This is a list of all the patients that were at that facility as of January 1st of a particular year. This particular volume is from 1943. And it is a real live volume. It's got the nurse's name in the front and the little short descriptions, and the descriptions are pretty vague. It's like, their name, their age, admitted so-and-so date, they're unresponsive, and their calmness, and some of them say must be restrained. There's a lot of pencil written notes in here.
Next thing I'm going to do here is seal the circle. This is salt, it's special salt. Actually, it's sea salt from Walmart. But what I'm going to do, this is again, I hope I'll go around the outside here and seal the table in, but you guys can. I'm going to go around the circle 3 times with just little tiny pieces of salt to seal the circle. So go ahead and join hands now. All right, this is important. If you feel like you need to get out for any reason, if something is upsetting you, sometimes people get nauseous or dizzy, things like that, do not break the circle. Let me know. I will come and I'll get you out of the circle. Join hands with the person next to you. I will need to break it if you do need to get out. It does happen, and I was watching with the test that I did initially, and there are a couple of people here that are very sensitive, which could be very cool. So, I'm going to start around, and I'm just using very little of this. And you notice I'm going counterclockwise to the left. It's sometimes called winning. I'm a sensitive. I'm going to try to figure out I'll see if she'll talk to me to begin with. Very, very vague. I'm getting the color red. And I'm tempted to say something about a farm, which makes no sense to me. I don't know what kind of name that would be. Dan, you're outside the circle, so nobody has to let go if you're far enough out. Let's see what the documentation. We're getting red and farm on this. She is in room 54 on the first floor. And her patient number is 35145. Does what I've sensed to make any sense?
I have room 54,
Yes, on the first floor.
bed 54, floor 1, correct?
Correct.
Ruby Hayes, 14 years old, confused, anxious, agitated.
So that explains the red. I guess Hayes was Hay. That's pretty okay. We'll go with that. So we know how to address, we know who to address for this. At this point, we can ask Ruby questions. Traditionally, this is again from spiritualism and the spiritualist church and all that kind of stuff. Traditionally, it's 1 indicator for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for I'm not going to tell you. I don't know how to put it. Traditional opening question, you'll notice I'm moving to the right now. The traditional opening question, is there anybody here? Nobody knows Ruby's here. Ruby, are you okay? Does anybody have a question you'd like to ask Ruby, or? Sally? I mean, Sally mean anything to you, Ruby? Is anybody else hearing that? That's pretty clear, I think. Sally, no. Anybody else have a question? Something you'd like to ask now? Be sensitive to the environment here. Does anybody else notice that it's gotten significantly warmer since we began? Y'all see out of that stuff?
Is there a Mary?
A Mariel?
Mary.
Mary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We can ask. Ruby, is there a Mary? Is there a reason for that particular, or did it just come to you once again? Yeah, that's cool. If stuff just comes to you, we definitely want to pounce on it, as it were. Mary? Ruby, do you know a Mary? That was interesting. Anyone else see that? The planchette for the Ouija board just jumped. It moved about 2 inches. You heard it. I saw you guys jump.
I'm getting that she missed her brother.
What's that?
I'm getting that she was missing her brother.
Missing her brother. Wow.
Yeah, brothers and sisters and shit.
It's not reported, but that does make sense. Are you missing your brothers or sisters or relatives?
And now we're with Dr. Michael Henry from the St. Charles Ghost Tour, founder and guide, essentially. And we've worked together before. I've known you for years. I don't like to say anything that's not true. We've been together for a few times, on a few ghost
10
hunts.
minutes.
Yeah. Well, 10 minutes is good, yeah. But we just came out of a really emotional seance. And I saw some of the people here were sweating, were shaking, were coming up with ideas. Is that standard for you?
It's pretty standard. Actually, this one was a bit light. You can do a seance anytime, day or night. It is, whether or not it's dark has nothing to do with it. But when you get a little darker, it gets a little more nervous, and they get a little more sensitive. This one was really like seance light, 33% less entertaining. But but it was a good one. I was very happy with the results. And at the end there, I was getting a little concerned with some of the stuff that's going on. I don't know if you caught that.
I didn't have the video on the right spot, but if I understood correctly, that loud noise we heard was your...
The Ouija board planchette jumped about 4 inches.
Right, okay, I heard the sound of wood on wood, and I didn't catch what it was.
You'd have to sit there with the camera focused the whole time, and then it probably wouldn't happen.
And I wanted to be sure I had you and the people who were...
Right.
Boy, like I said, they were sweating, they were shaking. Probably good stuff when you did.
A very sensitive group. I can really, people can screw themselves up, and sometimes I don't know when to quit, if that makes sense. But,
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the opening little test that I did with the suggestion in light heavy.
I watched.
Everybody reacted.
I saw.
Yeah, so it was like, who do I pick the worst ones in this case? And
Well, I know that you never know who we're talking to. We have
correct.
no evidence. When we are talking to a spirit, be it my dowsing rods or your seance, we don't see them.
that's right.
But what do you believe we contacted, or you contacted?
Well, the stuff that I've been doing lately with seance, I like it to be artifact based, and it's surprising how many artifacts, I don't want to say are possessed. That's silly, but have influence. That
Okay.
there's traces of spirit hanging around them in some fashion. And I've stumbled on some really cool artifacts here lately. Did you get to see? I put it away already. The book from Waverly
Yes,
Sanatorium,
that was-
and some photographs. And that one's cool. I love the way it will select one of the people in the book.
Each time.
Yeah, it's different every time.
And then the people in the seance were sensing names that was coming up, according to your book, and times of death, I suppose.
Yeah, right. And the one name that they mentioned was like the next page
Okay.
from the spirit guide that we were utilizing.
And if I remember right, that book was listed based on what room and what
Right.
floor and such as that.
It's sort of like really early medical privacy stuff. That book was quite public,
Right.
so the actual information was quite vague to protect the privacy of the patients.
Tell me about your tour. I've been
Okay.
on it, but a lot of folks haven't.
Been running 10 years now, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. Every Friday and Saturday, 7, 9:30, midnight, depending on how many people we get. It is completely historically based. Everything in there that we talk about, we display, we visit is completely documented. Newspaper articles, letters, signed affidavits, and all the events. Ghosts are unpredictable. I can't promise we'll see
Absolutely.
anything. But if I talk about a manifestation, it has been personally experienced. I never tell anybody else's stories.
Okay.
And I sometimes get people really angry with me on this because they'll bring me their photographs and they'll have their stories, and I have to say, I'm sorry, I cannot comment on it. I was not there. Then
Right.
they get all mad at me.
Well,
But
that's
if
part
I
of
guess
being
wrong,
honest.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And there's not enough of that in the paranormal community as a whole.
I'm afraid you're right. How do people get on your tour? How do they get hold of you?
www.stcharlesghosts.com. Do a web search on St. Charles Ghosts. It comes up first in Google and Yahoo. And all
You're
those
the
guys.
only one doing that now, too,
Currently.
right? Yeah.
Currently. Yeah, it's just never been quite big enough to hire anybody. On Halloween, they lose weight.
I can imagine.
But the rest of the time, it barely pays for groceries. But that's okay. Keeps me off the streets.
No, it keeps you on the street.
That too.
All right, and Dr. Michael Henry
Correct.
of St. Charles Ghost Tours,
Correct.
with an S.com. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir. Okay, last thing, I'm with the founder of the St. Louis Paranormal
Research Society.
Okay, I was
It's a mouthful.
mouthful. This is Mark, and he just put on one incredible show. Great lectures, great ending with the seance. I know. What did it take to get this?
I have great people. Yeah, it took a lot of work. Actually, the hall. I grew up in Dupo. I know most people that belong to the Oddfellows. So the hall wasn't it, but the amount of work that Wendy and Jolyn put in their lecture, Robert put in his lecture, and what I did in mine, plus Nicole and Mike's seance at the end.
Sure.
There was just a lot of work, and it took a month to prep for this.
Really?
And we're starting to prep for our next one probably tomorrow.
Tell me real briefly about the 7 Gates to Hell. I have never heard of it before.
You never have?
No.
You know, I learned about the 7 Gates when I was in high school, and it was kind of you want to go experience something paranormal. It was a cruising spot. You take your girlfriend with you, and you can stay. And I tell you what, I've never been disappointed at the 7 Gates. The 7 Gates always delivers for me. And it's the one place that if you want something paranormal to happen, go. You can go to Google Earth or go to a blog site and find out where all the 7 Gates are at, so you can find them. But I know the back roads. That just first couple times trying to drive out there to locate them is kind of difficult, but there's always something going on out there.
Okay, and you said there was a unsolved murder that was
Yes.
pretty horrendous from what you discussed.
Yes, it was Jane Doe, June 20th, 1990, and she was found close to the intersection of Troy O'Fallon Road and Lebanon Road. And they removed her fallopian tubes, her ovaries, and her uterus, and they were surgical precision, almost like Jack the Ripper style murder. And they think it's because of the time of the year that it happened that it was occult related or satanic related.
Okay.
And there was no defensive remedies.
Yeah, that's the weird part.
And I mean, you're law enforcement. I mean, you think someone's going to be cutting on, you're going to be fighting.
Right.
There wasn't even, like, you think some type of bindings that were done. They didn't find anything like that.
Then there was a car crash with
Yes.
several deaths.
And that was
10
very
people.
weird. That happened back in '94,
Okay.
and a car. There's a road that goes. It's gated off, but there's a road that goes up. They say they do occult rituals and stuff out there, but a car came down that road, and the teenagers were traveling, probably faster than they should on the dark road, and collided and pushed them into that wall.
Burned to death. So you've seen shadow people out there.
Yes.
You mentioned having rocks thrown at you by people
Yeah.
trying to keep you away.
Oh, I've been chased away by the black. They have a black car that chases people. It used to be a black neon, but we were up there one night and we got out. We were investigating, and then this black car just comes up like behind ours and just stops. So we thought, hey, let's just go. And it followed me. It actually followed me all the way back to Cahokia.
Wow.
Yeah. So before I turned off.
You've got a lot of stuff coming up. So what can we tell these people that you've got coming?
Oh yeah, we've August 11th. I don't know when this is going to air, but we do the Limp Mansion experience, the tour inside the mansion every other Thursday.
Okay.
Every Friday and Saturday we have the Limp Neighborhood Walking Tour, America's Most Haunted Neighborhood. And a lot of people don't realize that how much paranormal activity happens around the Limp. I mean, everybody focuses on the Limp, but there's a whole other road of hauntings. People don't realize that St. Louis actually has Jack the Ripper, or ties to Jack the Ripper. And he lived in the neighborhood that lives at.
No kidding.
Yeah, Francis Tumbleton. And we tell that story. There's a lot of people don't realize that St. Louis actually has a Revolutionary War presence. A lot of people think that St. Louis was founded by the French when it was founded by the Spanish. There's a Cherokee Park with a Revolutionary War battle. So there's a lot of cool stuff down there to take advantage of. Lost speakeasies. And also in September, we're going to start doing not cave tour, but a Limp Brewery tour. And eventually we're going to try to get down to the caves, but we're going to be able to go down to the vaults, go through the old Hops Drying House.
Right.
Invite you guys along. Be my guest.
And this is not a place that has ever been done before like this.
Not the brewery. No one's ever done tours in the brewery. We have Peabody Opera House going on August 20th.
The Peabody Opera House
Downtown.
And you said that had been an orphanage, built on an orphanage?
Yeah, where the footprints at. If there was an orphanage once there. And also there was a school there also. And the neatest thing is if you go to the Missouri History Museum archives and look up the Keel Center and look through some of the old photos, you'll see apparitions in the photos. And
so you've got a lot of really cool stuff people need to be getting into.
Yeah.
If they're from St. Louis and they don't know the haunted history.
Yes, and then we got the Alton Y coming up in September. We're going to go back doing our overnights at the Alton Y.
Uh-huh.
And I think we have Pierre Marquette and the Fox Theater in October.
Where do people find all this stuff so they can start making their schedule out?
www.seeaghost.com.
SeeAGhost.com.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great talking.
Thank you.